Welcome to the new version of Kinsey's security reporting for Lawson software. In this quick start screencast, we will show you the core features of our application, including filtering, grouping, sorting, saving, scheduling, emailing, historical reporting and comparisons, and then how we do some data collection. So let's take a look at the application. Starting on our default LS reporting dashboard, we're going to go ahead and select security reporting. And we'll default into our production server and our APS profile. So a lot of options here. On the favorites up in the right corner, you can save any one of these reports by simply right-clicking and adding to favorites. Or if you want to remove your favorites, just right-click and remove from favorites. So those reports that you're using on a more regular basis, just go ahead and create a favorites list, and they're just easier to get to. So let's go ahead and show you how this core functionality works by using the user role security class form query. This is a pretty common report that a lot of our clients currently use. It'll give them what level of access their users have for any particular form. Now on the filtering on what data I want to look at, we can do a drop down here and I can pick any of these options to decide what filters I want to apply to this query. If I pick the advanced option, we will build a list based on your data of, in this case, your current users. You can easily select by holding Control or Shift, depending on if it's a range or if it's individuals, and just add those to the right. And you'll build the query just based on that information. We can do that easily with all these different filtering options. And again, we would read your roles in to build this list. So let's go ahead and pull in all the information, so we can look at a full report on all of our users, our roles, our security classes, and the forms. Now, there is an optional query that would pull in all object types, so your tables, categories, programs, secureable types. Well, there's about 10 or 12 different object types that you can pull into these queries. Many of them are built on the forms because a lot of people want to see their access at the form level. So we looked at advanced filters. Now, within each of these queries that you pull data in for, you can also, just like you would do in Excel, you can query on any one of these or build a filter on any one of these columns. So I can use the filtering icon here, and I might say contains HR 11. And if I filter on this, you'll see that the query will pull back with just the forms that contain HR 11. I can have more than one filter on any one query, so I could also filter on the role that contains DIRECT, and we'll filter on that. And now I've just got the HR director, the users, and the form and what the rule is. So that's just a simple way to add additional filters into a report once you've pulled in the data based on the initial criteria when we started the report. So let's go ahead and clear these filters out. Now the next thing we can do is just simple sorting. So I can click on any individual column and sort by, click on user, sort by user, click on form, sort by form. Any way you want to sort this, we'll sort in that sequence. Now you can also do grouping. So grouping allows me to build more structure behind the query that I'm looking at. So if I want to group by user, I'll just drag this up to this row, and I'll see now each of my users, and I could have done this by name versus the user ID, and how many objects, or in this case forms, are assigned to that user. I can expand this and quite easily see every form that's assigned and the rule that's attached for that user. Now I might want to build a little more structure in, so I can do this by role, and I'll group it also by security class. And I get counts based on my level or the type of grouping I'm doing. So since I did user role, this count tells me that B. Thomas has 9 roles. If I expand that, and because my next grouping is role security class, it'll say AC accountant has 9 security classes, and I see the 9 here. And then each one of these security classes is the number of forms attached to that class. So in AC, let's say AC analysis, there's 130 forms, and I see a list of my forms, the description, the available function codes, which we get out of Lawson, and then what your rule is set to. So you'll know if all access is on a form that might only have inquiry capability, that you will know all access doesn't mean they can change because the form doesn't have that option. So pretty simple to group and see a structured query on the way you might see it within LDAP, how the tree works. Now you can invert these, so it doesn't matter how you do grouping. So if I were to remove these, and what by invert I mean is looking at the model from the bottom up. So let's say I group by form, and then I group by security class and role. Now I've really got an inverted model here. So again, maybe I want to go back to HR11, and I see HR11.1, which is my employee maintenance form. I can expand that, see it belongs to 4 security classes, and if I want to see in the HR setup, the roles that it's assigned to, I see that it's in 3 roles, and HR director is assigned to 3 people. So very easy looking at this inverted as opposed to looking at it from the user perspective. I can look at the form. You can also flatten this model out by just grouping it by form and by user, and now I can expand, and I see Sammy Christian has 4 ways to get to this form, and if I expand that, I'll see which roles and which security classes, and the role is assigned to each one of these roles for this user. So quite simply, that's a way that we can get through the advanced filters on what data we pull in, the column filters, the column sorting, and the column grouping. Now additionally, we have drill functionality. So if I wanted to drill to the detail behind Sammy Christian, I can click on here and I can go to all objects for this user as opposed to just forms. So at the all object level, it's going to pull back that one user, and I'm going to see now I got my tokens, fields, securable types, tables, and I could go ahead and group this by type, and I can sort it by type. And if I now want to come down to categories, for again, I'm only on Sammy Christian, here's all the categories and the level of access for those categories. I can also, now that I've just basically opened a new query, I could come back and I could just expand this to say I want this for all users and go ahead and run this report, or I could pick a specific object type, and maybe what I want are programs, and I'll go ahead and run that report. And now I'll have my by user, only now instead of just being at the token level, I'm actually at the program level. So I can do all the same functionality here. I can group it by user. I can expand the user and see what programs they have access to and see what level of that access that is. So again, it doesn't matter which type of object you want to report on. We have all of them built into the queries. So we'll close these out. Now additionally, we can save these reports and schedule them for notifications. So any report that I have while I'm running it, there's an option on the screen to save it. And if I look for my saved reports, they're going to show up on a separate query. And so I can just run from here. So if I just want to see financial users report, I right click, I run the report. And the parameters that were built into the criteria will be saved and the report will be run. So I could also put this on a schedule. So back on this page where I see clocks, that tells me it's been scheduled versus just being saved. So we have some reports that are just saved and not scheduled. We have others that are saved and scheduled, but it's not an active schedule. And the blue clock indicates that it's actually an active schedule and being emailed. So that's a nice feature to have if you want to send email notifications out every quarter of a certain department and their user and role assignments. That'll go out automatically either as a PDF or as an Excel document. Then finally, what we've also built into this are snapshots and comparisons. So I can do, by doing a comparison, if I'm in my production server, I can go to my user role report, and I can do this on any of my queries, and I can tell it I want to run a comparison against how my security looked, we'll say back on 12/31/15, and run a report. So if you're doing security reviews once a year and you want to know just what has changed since the prior year, we'll come back and give you a query of saying this has all been added, and we see my first 4 columns have a C next to them, so that's my current security. My next 4 columns have an H, so that's historical. So what it's telling me here is that for these users on the left, I've added these roles to these specific users. If I go ahead and group this by function, I'll go ahead and see I got deletes. So now what I have is I have a number of users where I've deleted specific roles since the snapshot, which was back in 2016. So I can do my filtering here just like I could anything else, and maybe what I really want to do is pick a particular user, so we'll pick F. Nelson and run the report, and I'll see what I'm going to have here is F. Nelson added these roles and they deleted these roles. In this case, there was a change because it was a change to the description. But now I know for F. Nelson, over the past year, I've made a number of adds after the roles that I've assigned him, and I've taken other ones away. So that's just how we can run our comparisons. Now, you can also run historical reports. So if you wanted to go back at any point in time and see what did security look like based on a snapshot, I can up here in the right-hand corner pick my snapshot from production. I'm going to pick the date I want to go back to, and I'll go back to my 2017 date, and I'll pick my profile. And now I have my reports, and the majority of these are going to work for you. Some of them have data that's not necessarily timestamp sensitive. So when we get down to the HR audit information, and we pull some data out of the employee table, I don't have an employee table from June 26th of 2017. So about 90% of these queries are available based on point in time. So now I can go out and look at my user role assignments or my user role security class assignments from back in June of 2017 if there's ever a question as to what level of security did a user have back at that point in time. So that's really the core functionality on how all these work. So when you're using the application, you should be able to do all of your grouping, filtering, your column sorting, and your drilling on any of these queries. So finally, let's look at how we pull this information. So back on your administration tab, you're going to have scheduled task. And in these scheduled tasks, it will more than likely show up at the top, because anytime if you've already had the product installed on your system, we will set this up to run sometime overnight when it doesn't interfere with other processes that might be running, and anything that's scheduled will show up at the top of the list and have a check mark over to the left. So when I come down here, I'll see this LDAP data collection prod for production. If I want to run it on demand, I would just click on the green button here, and it'll run on demand, and we'll tell you the last time it was run and how long it takes to run. So you get a good indication of, the last time it took me 12 minutes, so I can kind of figure out that's what it's going to take this time, or it took actually 4.6 minutes. So, and again, we would have this generally scheduled, but if you make changes during the day, we need to pull the information out of LDAP and repopulate our SQL database. So we're not actually hitting LDAP directly when you're running reports. So if multiple people are running reports, you're not putting a load on your Lawson server. And that's really the only function in here or task that you would have to run in order to populate your security data. These other processes are for security changes, our monitoring application, our segregation duties application. There's a lot of tasks that we have that we run at night. But that's kind of just a quick start on, if you want to get going on the application, you want to know how to use some of the core functionality, just go ahead and select security reporting and start playing with your filtering. We also could, up in the right hand corner, there were export options for Excel, PDF, or straight to printer, but that's pretty intuitive, and you'll see those options up in the right hand corner of the screen. If you have questions, please feel free to give us a call. If you'd just like more information, you can go to Kinsey.com and look for the support tab up in the right corner of our homepage, and you'll have information on manuals, additional training videos, and product brochures.